Texans feeling themselves, but life without Nico Collins could be inevitable. D'Amico Ryan spoke yesterday to the media. Myself, Cody Stoots, SNL. We were on hand for D'Amico's press conference. This is what he had to say about the best receiver in the NFL statistically up to this point.
Nico, he's in good spirits. Of course, with the hamstring, it takes a couple weeks for a hamstring, so we'll evaluate that, on a week-to-week basis to see when we can get him back.
All right, so there you go. Week to week is what he said. You got the Patriots right in front of you, and then you're going to have the Green Bay Packers, followed by the Colts and the Jets. What will life without Nico Collins look like? And I have 10 roster questions, Cody, and that's going to be question number one. What would life without Nico look like? You kind of talked about this last week, and now it appears to be kind of a reality. What is that going to look like? What's it going to be like? We got one half of it, and it wasn't pretty.
It's a little scary to think about life without Nico Collins and life without Joe Mixon. We went through the list the other day of the most important players on the Texans. CJ Stroud, number one. We put Joe Mixon and Nico Collins in the top four. And so two of your four best players and two of your four most important players maybe not playing. It's a scary situation to be in. Look, you've got Stefon Diggs. You've got Tank Dell. You were excited coming into the season for the depth that the Texans had at the wide receiver spot. So let's see Tank Dell, Stefon Diggs step up without Nico Collins. I'll give you a little bit of a break if you're Bobby Slowick in the offense because you can't figure everything out in 15 minutes of halftime. But with a week to get ready for the New England Patriots, probably another week to get ready for the Green Bay Packers without Nico Collins, you've got to be able to scheme something up, put something together to live without Nico Collins. But life without Nico Collins is not going to be anywhere near as fun as life with Nico Collins was.
Well, that's some breaking news there, Stoots. That's the insight you get here on S&L. I also think this is why you make, all joking aside, I think this is also the reason that you make the moves that you make. Last year, if Nico was out or if Tank was out, you're relying on Noah Brown or you're relying on John Mechie or you're relying on someone not nearly of the same caliber as Stefon Diggs and Tank Dell. So in a perfect world, you wonder and you think about these three guys being together, but this is kind of why you make that move. It's an opportunity for Diggs. It's an opportunity for Tank Dell to where, Tank Dell's production has been kind of not needed. It hasn't been needed. It hasn't been, it's been kind of like, well, they won, but Tank Dell didn't do anything. Now you're almost dependent on Tank Dell. So you get a look at what Tank Dell is capable of, and they're almost forced to use Tank Dell, for better or worse, the way that a lot of people have been begging for them to use him for the majority of this season when he's been healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I would say you've needed Tank Dell's production. You played a bunch of one-score football games. You need him to be better. You need to use him better than he has been used, and you need to get him going. And this is the perfect opportunity. There's no more, hey, throw it up, Nico's down there somewhere. It's going to be up to Bobby Slowick and CJ Stroud. How do you get Tank Dell comfortable? How do you get him involved? And we talked about it last week. You get Tank Dell involved. It's not just gimmick some stuff and get him the ball like on a sideways pass or something like that just to get him comfortable. Well, now it's changed the scheme because Stefon Diggs and Tank Dell don't do the same thing, don't operate the same way as Nico Collins. So you're changing things. So now you can draw up stuff for Tank Dell, draw up stuff for Stefon Diggs. It's not just, hey, this is how we operated throughout the course of the year. This is what we practiced in training camp. This is what we've been practicing. Now you got to scrap a lot of that. It's not just a one-and-one plug and play for this team. Now you've got to accentuate the advantages that Tank Dell and Stefon Diggs have as wide receivers and put them forward as part of this offense.
Top roster questions here on SNL. Landry Locker and Cody Stoots with you, and all this will be made easier if Joe Mixon comes back. Which brings us to question number two: when does Mixon come back? We had him practicing 2 Fridays ago, and then you just some people assumed that he would be back on Sunday. He was not. They found a way to win games without Mixon. Missed him a lot in the Minnesota game. I don't know when Mixon comes back. I would say that it seems like Green Bay would be the area. It could be tomorrow or it could be Green Bay is where I'm putting it with when I think Mixon comes back. But I think he's relatively close. I don't know, like, and this might be dangerous territory, but I don't know how much of a hurry they're in right now with Mixon, given the start that they've had and given how dependent they are on him. Like, you really, really need Joe Mixon, but because of that, on one hand, you can say, well, we got to get this guy back on the field because there's no resemblance of a run game without him. But on the other side, it's okay if we rush him back and then all of a sudden this gets re-aggravated, then all of a sudden we're not only in the same situation that we were in before when we were, by the way, finding ways to win games, but now it might be even worse. It's kind of it's kind of something that they're going to have to figure out.
The way D'Amico Ryans talked about Joe Mixon, it didn't give me overwhelming confidence. He's back this week against the New England Patriots. We'll still evaluate Joe. He's week to week. We don't know as of right now. I mean, if you don't have a sense, and he said, look, Mixon's been improving, but if he has to go out there and test it on Wednesday, that doesn't feel like a type of guy that's going to be, all right, practice, play on Sunday against the New England Patriots, handing the ball 30 times. That's not the way you talk about a guy that is ready to get back. And to your point, they can't risk re-injuring him and having him be lost for a longer amount of time than he's already been lost. And the flip side of that is, though, Landry, if he's good to go, you almost have to play him. They have no faith in this rushing attack.
When he wants to play, like, I think Joe Mixon wants.
They
almost have, like, he's almost one of those guys where you have to protect him from himself, because he wants to play very badly. It's interesting because there's probably some guys that, you know, you would think, okay, well, we got to really push it. Joe Mixon's not that guy. Joe Mixon wants to be on the field. In
a perfect world, you'd love to just wait maybe one more week past when he feels like he's good. I just don't know if that's where they are with this. They do not believe in the rushing attack. They showed us that by not running the football. And then D'Amico Ryans said it yesterday. He said, we didn't want to lose yards running the football on 3rd and 5 with 44 seconds left. We didn't want to lose yards. You can't get 1 yard. You can't get 0 yards. No faith in this rushing attack. And they shouldn't have faith in this rushing attack. Here's a little number for you. Stoots stats.
Could I interest you in a stat?
You have a stat, or you want me to?
No, I'm just setting you up, sir.
Yeah, Stoots stats and information. 56 carries with running backs over the past 3 games. 176 yards.
Yikes.
3.1 yards per carry. I don't have to tell you that's terrible. Yeah. That's horrible. So as soon as he's good to go, as soon as you feel comfortable with him at 100%, you got to put him back in there. If that's this week, play him this week. If that's not 100% comfortable, then you got to play him next week against Green Bay if you get to that point.
Which brings us to question 3, which is connected to this. As Landry Locker, Cody Stoots go through the 10 biggest roster questions facing the Texans before it's on to New England. Does Pierce go back to being RB2? Dameon Pierce. We haven't seen Dameon Pierce in a long time. Does he go back to being RB2? Is it Cam Akers? What are we doing? Like, the one thing we do know is that Dare Ogunbowale's roster spot is safe. Like, he's not, there's no scenario where Dare Ogunbowale is not active on this roster. So does that mean that Cam Akers goes back to being inactive? Do they have Dameon Pierce inactive? What happens at RB2? I think it's an interesting question. Akers does appear to have, like, flashes where he runs the ball somewhat effectively, but there's also the runs where he's losing a couple of yards. And I don't know if there's, like, some sort of meaning to that. I don't know how they feel about it, but the Dameon Pierce thing is interesting. Does he go back to be an RB2 when he's healthy, which I think is going to be pretty damn soon, very soon?
Did you feel like the Dare Ogunbowale start and focusing on him was more about they just had added confidence in Dare Ogunbowale, or they had lost confidence in Cam Akers?
I think they have added confidence in Dare Ogunbowale. I think he's one of their favorite guys, because even amidst all that, like, to cap off the first scoring drive, they were giving the ball to Cam Akers.
I would be an idiot to tell you that I know Dameon Pierce is going to be better than these guys because of what we've seen this season, because we've seen 3 carries in the regular season for 16 yards. That's it from Dameon Pierce. And it didn't look good in the preseason. So I'd be an idiot to tell you, yeah, absolutely, he's the guy. He's going to fix some of the stuff. But it's been so bad, I'm interested to see what he's got. Okay. Like, just put him in the rotation. I don't think he's for sure the guy by any means, but I'm interested to just see if he can be a little bit better than these guys.
Yeah, I mean, he had the 2 carry sequence against the Colts where, he ran the ball decently. I mean, he moved the chains. But yeah, we haven't seen a lot from him. I really don't know what they're going to think there, but I think he gets some sort of opportunity just because it's been so suspect. So maybe we go back to Cam Akers being inactive. I don't know. I could actually see them having 4 running backs active because, and let me explain this. I think Akers adds an element that Pierce doesn't necessarily add. I think if they needed someone to have carry the heavy load between Pierce and Akers, I think they would probably feel more comfortable with Akers. And let's be honest, Steven Sims, we'll get to him in a second as we go through the 10 roster spots. He was taking up a roster spot and he didn't do crap. So if you can find some sort of justification to put an extra running back on the roster, maybe you do. I really don't know. I'm fascinated with how much they just neglected the backup running back position, but I'm not trying to beat that dead horse.
Well, it's also strange that British Brooks makes this team by
He's
running
done.
the football well.
He's done.
And then they never used him as a running back.
Yeah, he's done.
So,
he's done we won't see British Brooks again this year.
Yeah, so it's I don't know why he never got an opportunity. They just, I guess, put him as a fullback and figured, oh, okay, so they felt most comfortable with Cam Akers, and then they changed the comfortability rankings by putting Dare ahead of Cam, and let's see where Dameon Pierce fits into there. But those are your guys. You can't elevate J.J. Taylor anymore, so these are the guys you have at running back.
Yeah, I don't think we should see British again this year. I'm pretty sure. Have they announced that yet?
They have not announced that yet.
Well, maybe they will. I don't know. I wouldn't bet on it.
Is he going to Willis Reed out of the locker room this week?
No, I don't believe that. He might street clothes out of there. But no, I don't anticipate seeing British Brooks again. Just a guess. Question 4, how does Autry fit in? I mean, this is a guy that they loved. And the defense has had trouble getting to the quarterback. And I don't want to say, I think these defensive tackles have done fine filling in, but there's not a lot of dynamic pass rushing abilities. You have a guy who's had double-digit sacks, a guy who they talk about better than they've talked about. How does he fit in? I think this is the most intriguing thing in the world, or intriguing question of all, because this defense has been pretty effing good. When you look at those Josh Allen stats, I know you could say he didn't have weapons, but 9 of 30 for 130 yards is bananas for a quarterback that good. And you sprinkle in the fact that the guy that they perhaps liked at least as much as anyone that they brought in is going to be on the D line. If he is what they think he is, this is exciting. And it's almost like a blessing in disguise, assuming that he's going to be what it was, because you're looking at being a 4-2 at worst, 5-1 football team. And it's basically like a trade deadline move. It's basically like a trade deadline move where you bring in a guy who's going to, he hasn't taken any beatings or anything. His body's going to be fresh, and you just sprinkle him into that D line. I'm intrigued by this. I want to see what this looks like.
I would wager he's probably going to be a better player than anybody that gets traded at the trade deadline. And by a pretty decent margin as well. So it's a nice addition. It's, there's a little roster management to get him in there, but it's very clear how you use him and how you put, you can see the role easily, how he fits in there. And that defensive line, which already is playing pretty well, and is the engine of, the top pressure team in the league. You're going to get Autry back probably next week. Kurt Heinisch is close to returning. They're starting to get even more whole than they already have been. And that just bodes well for the long-term high floor, higher ceiling of this defensive line.
28.5 sacks in the last 3 seasons. He's coming off a career high 11.5. And he's not going to be asked to do as much. He could kind of be like a spot situation where he's out there in pass rush downs. So I'm very intrigued by this. How does he fit in? I think he's going to fit in. It's just a matter of what do they do? How creative do they get? Q5, question 5, as we go through the Texans' biggest roster questions. How hurt is Jimmie Ward? I don't think we see Jimmie Ward for a while either.
Groin. It feels like that's a lingering injury. too.
Yeah, I don't think we see Jimmie Ward anytime soon. So we're going to see some Kalen Bullock, and we're going to see the Eric Murray Petrie juggling that we've seen thus far. It's kind of a damn shame for Jimmie Ward. That contract extension was weird as hell. I didn't really get why they did that, but they did do that. They added an extra year, which good for him. But Jimmie Ward's basically just having to sit there and watch someone take his job in Kalen Bullock. So we're gonna have to see what's up with Jimmie Ward. Do we see Jimmie Ward return later in the season or what? But I anticipate that this is going to be not a short-term injury with Jimmie Ward. Not positive, but I would think that we don't see him for at least a few weeks.
I mean, the guy played a handful of snaps, got hurt, and then came back in and got hurt again. Like Father Time has not been kind to him. It's caught up to him. The durability's not there. And if he's not back for a few weeks, that's fine. The contract extension looks more and more peculiar each week that goes on this season, though.
Yeah, 100,000%. Question
six. All right, since we're at the midway of the 10 questions.
Yes.
We'll talk about the Jets firing Saleh at the end.
Yes, we'll get to the breaking news because that impacts the Houston Texans. We always localize it. We're live for a reason.
Yes.
We're live for a reason. So you will get immediate reaction to the Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh has been fired. Will he be on the Texans staff next year? 713.
Next year, he might be a defensive assistant in 2 weeks. So yes, we will get to that. I promise we will get to that. I see that in the chat. We will talk about it. But Landry's got roster questions for you.
Question 6: Can Townsend punt like this and stay? I mean, look, I know that sounds crazy, but if we get 5 more weeks of Tommy Townsend being one of the worst punters in the league, like, is he going to be able to stay?
I would say yes. It's not the most expensive contract in the world if you want to get out of it, though. I believe he's going to be a little bit better. Just the body of work shows you he can be better. So I believe he's going to be a little bit better. And I know Frank Ross on Thursday.
Body of work in the damn practice, dude. Like,
yeah. Like he's been awesome in his career, and he was even better in practice. And like he has not played like he's practiced for a few weeks now. So you just hope that the worm turns for him and he sticks around. If he continues to be as inconsistent as he's been, they have to have a serious conversation about what they're doing and adjust maybe the way that they operate. But if he stays punting the way he's been punting, they're not going to have one of the best special teams units like they have the past couple of seasons.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, it's a small thing right now, but the way that he's punted could easily have could cost you games. Like it can easily cost you games. Like I know that we naturally we look at punters and we look at kickers and we're like, oh, those guys. No, like but it can cost you games if he continues to punt like this. He can't do this.
No, it's got to be better. He's got to give them a better chance to flip the field and get out of precarious positions that the lack of a rushing attack is going to put them in. And oh, by the way, now you don't have Nico Collins, so now you're not as explosive. So hidden yards from special teams become even more important.
Question 7: Will Okudah return? He appears to be on the right track to returning sometime this year. I don't know what his timeline is. He doesn't look like a guy who's done for the year.
He's working out on the side, like he was doing the side workouts that Heinisch was doing before Heinisch returned. So, and he's on IR. You could return him. They've already used they'll use 2 IR returns. So Harris and Heinisch. Okudah would be a third. I think he gets 6. They got close to they got to the number last year, 6 or 8, but they got to the number last year. And it was a little iffy there towards the back end of the season. Like, are they going to be able to bring Kaimi back? But I believe Okudah will be back. They could use the depth just to give. I'm not saying I want to see him on the field, but man, just give Lassiter or Stingley a breather every now and then.
Question 8: Is Steven Sims done? No matter what. In other words, if Robert Woods misses a game, are they that done with Steven Sims? Do we not see Steven Sims return under anything? We don't have to give this a lot of thought. It's a simple yes or no. Like if let's say Robert Woods has the flu, Is Steven Sims going to return punts, or are we done with Steven Sims?
Then Woods better get sick today and not practice tomorrow, because Sims's roster spot is necessary very soon with the return of Autry on the way next week, and Kurt Heinish's impending return. So Sims's roster spot is needed very soon.
I asked D'Amico Ryans yesterday about the next question, and Robert Saleh has been fired. We'll react to that breaking news. We'll localize that breaking news in a second. But first, let's hear what D'Amico had to say about Christian Harris.
Not yet. We're still waiting on Christian. Christian is improving. He's doing well. We actually had Christian down on the sideline yesterday. It was just encouraging to see him down there, see his support, his energy that he brings to our team, and we're pulling for him to get back at the right time.
You worry about him getting the late start and not being able to pick up where you left off last year?
Whenever we can get Christian back, it'll be beneficial for everyone. I'm excited about his growth and his development. I'm still very encouraged by that, and Christian he'll pick up right where he left off.
All right, there you go. So he feels confident that he'll pick up where he left off. I do wonder what it looks like, and I think it's not necessarily just about rust or anything like that. I mean, the way in which they've been playing defense and the way they've been using Jalen Petrie and the way they've been really using two linebackers and two corners for the most part. Just how does he fit in? I almost think they make him fit into what they've been doing.
Sure.
And maybe we see a few more elements of like some three linebackers, but with the way you're playing defense right now, and I'm not saying this is like sustainable over the course of a season. You're not going to hold like elite quarterbacks to what you held Josh Allen to, but it would be, I don't think Christian Harris is the type of guy where you just completely wipe your hands of what you've been doing so far on defense. So I'm actually really intrigued to see what they do and how they put those puzzle pieces together and what he looks like when he comes back from this long absence.
He's definitely not good enough to change the way you've been playing defense, but he's good enough to help you in some way, shape, or form the way that you are playing right now. And again, maybe it's just a breather for Henry To'o or Azeez Al-Shire because of how much they've been playing, and that lets you continue to do what you have been doing as a defense with just the two linebackers, and he's just in there to kind of give them a rest every now and then.
Yeah, no doubt.
Or Henry's there to give him a rest, or whatever they want to do. I got pretty good faith in him right now.
Next one, and this is something nobody's talking about. The trade deadline. Do they make any trades? And I think this is interesting when it comes to the Texans. I don't know if this means anything or not. All I know is this: the trade deadline's November 5th. Okay. Mm-hmm. The Texans have a game on October 31st, which means after October 31st, they're going to be off for 3 days. They're not going to be in the building. So the 1st through the 3rd, the 4th is sometimes a victory Monday. Nick Caserio is going to have a lot of time on his hands. You're not going to have to be preparing for a game. So post-Halloween, I believe the deadline is on the 5th. You can check me if I'm wrong. That's off correct. The dome. They're going to have like 4 days to sit around with not much to do. And Nick Caserio doesn't strike me as a guy who's going to take a trip to the zoo or something like that on his off days. I feel like he's going to be thinking about the squad. I do wonder if there's any trades. Like, is there any move that perhaps the Texans entertain at the trade deadline? Maybe a running back, maybe a safety. Who knows? There could be some opportunity, and with that extra time, I wonder if they consider.
I would say yes. You need to consider it, and I don't know exactly financially what you want to commit to a trade, or if you only focus on certain guys and certain monetary levels, because I think the money's been an issue sometimes in trades and moving stuff around for Caserio. I think that's what kind of hurt the Brandon Cooks deal to the Cowboys. He couldn't move the money around to get it going. So sometimes you need teams to help you out a little bit, and you need some more teams to bottom out and suck. Like teams are more likely to jettison some pieces if they're starting to suck and fall apart. So I'd look at a running back. There's probably some teams out there that 3 weeks from now are in a pretty precarious position, and they might be willing to part with a backup running back. I think about New Orleans last night. I watched them. They start falling apart. And Jamal Williams, okay, add him to the equation. Because they got a rookie or a rookie from last year who's coming back from injury that could back up Kamara. So maybe you add him to the equation as a backup. Like, always look to fine tune something if it's out there. Maybe some safety depth, a guy that you trust to play. I don't know that there'd be some sort of massive game changer that's out there.
Yeah,
Look, I'd say this. I'd love to see Budda Baker back there, but I don't know that the Cardinals are trading him. I don't know you can afford him, and I don't know you want to pay the cost.
Corey Jackson says they're not trading, they're winning. Common sense. Yeah, I don't think you have that. It's usually the opposite. Like usually the buyers at the trade deadline are the teams that are winning that go in. We saw it just last year. 49ers traded for Chase Young. That's not common sense. But yeah, you can go find you some.
Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen. When the things continues to fall apart in Carolina.
You want another receiver?
Yeah, he always plays.
Okay. All right, we got some breaking news. Those are the 10 roster questions. Breaking news: Robert Saleh fired by the New York Jets. Just to localize this, first of all, one of D'Amico Ryan's mentors. The Jets found themselves in a really interesting position. So the Texans could have been in this position if you think about it, because the Deshaun Watson trade and Deshaun Watson wanting to be traded came like shortly before the draft, in which the Jets ended up taking Zach Wilson. The Texans were not able to get into that draft and draft a quarterback because Deshaun Watson was untradeable at the time as a result of the off-field stuff. So as a result, the Jets could have been one of those teams that would have been interested in Deshaun Watson, and Deshaun Watson's team was saying they were interested in the Jets. I saw Brian Burney talking to Craig Carton at that time and stuff, and there was kind of that like big city type of desire for Deshaun Watson. But the Jets ended up taking Zach Wilson. They sold their soul for Aaron Rodgers, and now the Jets have fired Robert Saleh. And oh, by the way, the Jets and Texans face off in a little over 3 weeks, 23 days to be exact. So from that perspective, the Jets, I don't know if they're going to go on like some sort of magical run, but it kind of feels like, the Jets were kind of at least pretending they were in that tier with the Texans. You might be able to knock them off relatively early. And this is what happens sometimes when you sell your soul for a quarterback.
This to me felt like Robert Saleh no longer was on board with the Aaron Rodgers experiment. And he bowed up at Rodgers running that team, and Rodgers made the call to get rid of him. Because, their defense has had some pretty nice moments over the course of this season, and the offense sucks. Like, the offense sucking is not Robert Saleh's fault. Like, that's I know they've had some slow starts to games, but they've had slow starts to games on offense, not defense. So Aaron Rodgers got a coach fired. I hope he's happy. I hope he likes his buddy Nathaniel Hackett calling plays for him. And
they didn't make Hackett the interim guy, by the way.
No, they made
he's not getting the gig.
Jeff Ulbrich.
Who the hell's that?
Good question. But yeah, so this is going to fall apart for the Jets. They fired this coach. They're not going to keep any of this coaching staff, and Rodgers will probably retire. And it wouldn't shock me if he retired midseason, if he just called it quits and just bailed.
All right.
If that thing got bad enough, I could see him just calling it quits in the middle of the season.
Has this happened today? Hey, Robert, it's D'Amico. How you doing? Hey, start off the news, man. Hey, just so you know, you always got a job with me if you want it, man. I got your back. You always got a job for me if you want it.
If he's not in the building as a defensive analyst in 2 weeks for that Jets game, what are we doing? Now,
I really wouldn't dismiss him being here.
I wouldn't either.
He could end up back in San Francisco. They don't seem to love life with Brandon Staley. Maybe he ends up back in San Francisco with Kyle. Go back to Old Faithful.
You could absolutely sell me that Robert Saleh ends up as Kyle Shanahan's Steve Spagnuolo. That he ends up back there, and that defense only really works when Saleh's there.
Who's his Patrick Mahomes?
Well, they ain't got a Mahomes, but it's figuring out the defense would be important.
Yeah, I think this is just interesting, and I think the way that I would most localize this, on top of I wonder what D'Amico and him are saying, is this could have it's a snowball effect of drafting a quarterback and it not working out, and they did so at the number 2 overall pick. And let's just be honest, if the Texans had that number 2 overall pick, they probably would have done something similar, whether it was Mac Jones, whether it was Trey Lance, whether it was Zach Wilson. Now, they still had an opportunity to get out of it, but they sold their soul with Aaron Rodgers. But this is just kind of where there's almost a blessing in disguise with Watson not being tradable before that draft. So that's just kind of where the Texans are at. You looked at the Jets as kind of maybe there's a threat. And oh, by the way, the Jets also got the Bills. The first game that this guy's going to coach is against the Buffalo Bills. I think it's Monday night. So there you go, right there. You're going to get to check that out with Aaron Rodgers.
Well,
and what he has to say.
And I mean, just one more ripple effect, like, alternate reality. If Watson had been on board with sticking around, you maybe could have ended up with Robert Saleh as your coach if he'd stuck around. Now, obviously, when he's leaving, he's not. Well, Saleh wasn't coming here; he had better opportunities.
Yeah, it wasn't a desirable job when he took the Jets gig.
Yeah,
but yes, there you go. Life comes at you fast.
Wait,
One of Nico Ryan's mentors.
Life comes at you real fast. This is terrible by the Jets organization, but that's a poorly run organization.
You wouldn't have fired him?
I'd have fired the OC.
Oh, well, you can't do that.
Well, yeah, because the quarterback runs the team.
Yeah, it's Aaron Rodgers' boy.
Yeah, because the quarterback runs the team.
So there you go. Robert Saleh. We hardly knew you. We'll see you. We'll see you in 2 weeks to prepare, man.
Somebody somewhere was holding a Saleh first coach fired ticket that had pretty good odds that is feeling pretty good today.
Yeah.
And all the Doug Peterson tickets are like, damn it, they're ripping their ticket up.
Yep. Appreciate everyone for coming through. We got the breaking news of the Robert Saleh, the 10 roster questions. We'll get into the Texans, perhaps believing the hype, back and forth with DeMeco Ryans probably tomorrow. Be sure to swarm the like button. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. I'm live Monday through Friday, 10:30. Stoots has videos throughout the day. HOU football as well when it comes to the written word. We appreciate you for coming through. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon.